Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 51 of the Memorial Memo KSR's Kentucky Women's Basketball Podcast. Now, before you all give me crap, I know I didn't do an episode this past week. It's Christmas time. It's the holiday season. I know you all were probably busy hanging out with your families too. My brother, who is in the Army, was actually back home last week and actually left to go back yesterday. So I've been kind of spending time with him, just kind of winding down. Yes, Stephen. I meant to do an episode last week, even had the date, time, we were ready to go, and then something came up and couldn't quite make it happen. But I'm glad to be back here today for episode 51. Episode 50 was really fun. We had Bria on, Bria Goss, that is. If you haven't listened to that one, I think that's just a good listen in general. I know we talked about the Wright State game, which was a couple games ago by now, but we talked about her time at Kentucky and everything too. So I thought that was actually really good, and I really enjoyed having her on. It was really fun. I recommend you go listen to it if you haven't yet. But to get to this episode, first of all, because we didn't do an episode last week, we got to talk about the AP poll. There wasn't an update this week, but again, there was last week. Hadn't been on since then. Kentucky moves up to number 11 in the AP poll. Makes sense to me. I don't know, just looking at the AP poll, I don't think Kentucky can really go up a whole lot more. You know, if they play, I guess how you would expect them to play, which is like you need an Iowa State to lose, you need TCU to lose. You look at the schedule, you would need like a Michigan to lose. But the AP poll, UConn 1, Texas 2, South Carolina 3, UCLA 4, LSU, who Kentucky plays next. We'll talk about that more on later. Number 5, Michigan 6, Maryland, who is 13-0, or actually I think 14-0 by now, maybe. Maybe they're 13-0. I'm not sure. I think they're 14-0 though. They're at number 7, TCU 8, Oklahoma 9, and then Iowa State 10. I think when you get to sort of the way the AP people think, like I think Kentucky's better than Iowa State, so I would flip flop them. But other than that, it's just I think Kentucky's just going to be at 11. So I don't really think there's a whole lot much to, I don't know if you can really complain or how you feel about that, but I think Kentucky's going to be stuck there at number 11. Kentucky did move down in the net. They were number 7. They are now at number 8. And normally I'd probably sit here and say, well, what the crap? Why is Kentucky moving down in the net? They haven't lost or anything. Well, all this time, Kentucky has been ahead of Maryland in the net, who they have a head-to-head loss to, and Maryland is now at number 7. So you look at that top 10 of the net rankings right there, or if you're just listening, it's UConn, South Carolina, Texas, UCLA, LSU, Michigan, Maryland, Kentucky at 8, TCU 9, Iowa, not Iowa State, Iowa at 10. So, I can't really get mad at Kentucky moving down to 8 if Maryland moves up to 7 because you lost to Maryland, right? So I would say if you want to stay up there, beat them. But regardless, Kentucky now number 8 in the net ranking. Still, I guess that would mean if the NCAA tournament started today, it's not, I don't know, I say that, it's not I was going to say if the NCAA tournament started today, Kentucky would be a 2 seed, right? But I know the net plays a big role in how the seeding is done, but I think the committee still kind of messes around with it a little bit. So I don't think that's entirely I don't think that is a list of okay, this is what is going to be the NCAA tournament. I think it's I think it plays a big role. It's a big guideline for the committee, but I don't think that's final. But we'll just say Kentucky would be a 2 seed, and it helps when you look at their quad records. And Kentucky, 2-1 still in quad 1, only lost to, of course, Maryland. A team that we need to kind of look at, right? A team that you wouldn't really think would really matter in all of this. And to be honest, that's a difference between a quad 3 and a quad 4, so it doesn't really matter a ton anyway. But Central Michigan, right there, okay? Central Michigan was a quad three win for like a few days because, in women's basketball for a home game, a quad three win would be against a top 90 team. Well, I think right now they're number 92 in the net. So that moved back down to a quad four. But, regardless, yeah. So I think it's just interesting to kind of keep in mind and kind of look at where Central Michigan is in all of this, to see if that does go from a quad three to a quad four. Um, I think if like you need Miami to keep winning to stay at a quad one, right? I think you look at Belmont, want them to keep winning. Maybe that even moves up to a quad two. But regardless, that's Kentucky's quad records: 2-1 in quad one, 3-0 in quad three, 8-0 in quad four. They'll have a quad one opportunity come New Year's Day. ESPN bracketology, a new one released this morning. Actually, I was doing the graphics and then I was like, oh, well, got to do another one because Kentucky still a 3 seed in the latest bracketology. And, I was talking about having to update the graphic. Well, I really didn't even have to because this is all, or this over, I can't point to save my life. Where am I trying to point? There we go. This all over here, it's all the same, right? It's the exact same as like as Charlie Cream's previous release of the bracketology, but Kentucky's still in position to host, still a 3 seed, and still supposed, according to the projected field, play Albany in the first round and then Ohio State and Fairfield, right? Like all of that is the exact same. So I think it'll be interesting if Kentucky, can stay in that 3 seed echelon, right? So I think it'll be, not important to like monitor the bracketology right now, right? I think that kind of becomes important, if you will, come February. But we're kind of a month out from that point, so I think for now it's kind of just an interesting talking point of okay, so this is where Kentucky kind of is, right? So Kentucky 3 seed is still projected to host. I think that's obviously kind of the goal if you are Kentucky. To kind of recap the Hofstra game, I know we didn't get to do Wright State. I'm not going back to recap Wright State. But Kentucky defeats Hofstra 80-42 on Sunday. Now, just watching that game, it was kind of, it reminded me a lot of the Wright State game because Kentucky started off slow a little bit. Offensively, I think they're all right. But at least defensively, like they're giving up more buckets than normal. It was a little bit closer than you wanted it to be. But then, come, really the 5 minutes left in the second quarter, then on, right? So, like, for the first 15 minutes of the game, I think Kentucky was kind of, right? But the last 25, I think they're great and playing normal. Like I said, Kentucky wins 80-42. Now, I think a big reason for those slow starts defensively, we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, but Teonni Key has been out injured these last 2 games. Now, she didn't have any now, if you watch the games, you don't really recall when she got hurt, right? You don't really recall what happened there, but she has been, according to UK, managing an injury from like the fall, and she's listed as day to day. Now, I will tell you that they say the fall, I don't know if it was technically the fall or not. I don't even think it was, but I can tell you from when I watched Kentucky back in the summer. This is kind of, I believe this is July at this point, and I'm watching Kentucky in practice, and Teonni's, she gets done practicing, and she has, I think it was an ice pack on her right leg. I believe it was her right leg, and I kind of noticed it, and I was like, okay, she didn't look off when she was practicing or anything like that. And so I just ask around, ask a couple folks, and they're like, it's precautionary, it's no big deal. And maybe it's not even that injury that she's managing right now. Maybe it is something from like, I don't know, September, October that happened. But I spoke with another media member who was at the Belmont game, uh, and they said that I think he noticed that Teonni was kind of favoring that leg, I guess, a little. I guess you can only take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But I don't think there's a need to be overly concerned with Teonni. Um, I guess we'll kind of find out. The good thing with SEC play is now we get these injury reports. You know, I don't have to go try digging around for injury information because the SEC or the teams will give it to us and we'll just know, right? So I think it'll be interesting to see, okay, is Teonni listed as probable or doubtful or out, right, for this LSU game? I think it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there, but I guess in the long term, I'm not overly worried about Teonni Key. But to get back to the Hofstra game, just as a whole in general, um, guys, 27 assists on 31 made field goals. Is that not is that not just a beautiful number? Is that not just, you know, again, I'm not going to pretend to be act like I'm a basketball guru or like a coach myself, but again, 27 assists on 31 makes sounds pretty good. You go look at somebody like a Tony Morgan, right? Had 9 points, 3 of 7 from the field, whatever. But she had 10 assists, guys. She had 10 assists in that game, in that win. And then you look at somebody, even like an Asia Boone, right? Who had 11 points, shot 3 of 8 from the 3-point line. Asia Boone, guys, had 8 assists. How about this? 8 assists. And, looked very comfortable, like passing the ball around. I thought it was really good stuff because, I asked Kenny in the post-game press conference because, again, like I said, I'm not a coach, right? I'm not going to pretend to understand the game of basketball to the level he does. I think I got a pretty good baseline knowledge of the sport. But I was like, all right, Kenny, you tell me, what does 27 assists on 31 makes tell you? What does that mean to you? And, Kenny says, well, that means our offense is flowing. It means first of all, we're playing a fun brand of basketball. It means we're having fun out there. But it also means, okay, when you watch a team and they get stagnant and nobody's moving, nobody's cutting, nobody's doing their job, like Kentucky isn't having that problem offensively right now, or at least they didn't against Hofstra. And it also means people are getting open. And obviously they're getting open, they're hitting shots. So, again, I thought Kentucky, obviously the stats say they played well in that department, but I just remember watching the game and thinking, they're getting a lot of makes off of the pass right now. Well, it's because they were 27 assists on 31 makes. It's hard to do much better than that. Even Amelia Hassett, she had 18 points. I've been so impressed with Amelia Hassett just this season. I feel like she's getting better throughout the year, and she just continues, to make me feel good. She continues to make me feel like, okay, I can trust you to be a quality starter in SEC play. 18 points, 6 of 9 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3-point range. She had 4 assists, too. Like, even Amelia Hassett was dealing them a little bit. 5 rebounds, a block, and 2 steals in 29 minutes. And somehow I've made it this far talking about the Hofstra game without talking about Clara Strack, right? Somehow I've made it to this point, and I haven't even brought up Clara Strack yet. Okay? 24 points on 11 of 17 shooting, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, but, gosh, she had 7 blocks. I don't remember what the single game record is for blocks by an individual player, but she had 7 blocks. And it's just, that's incredible, right? Like, Clara Strack, continues to play like the best defensive player, not just the SEC, but in the whole damn country, right? Like, Clara Strack continues to play on this in this phenomenal stretch, right? Like I feel like the Miami game, we almost saw her take another step. Like we almost saw her take this step of like, okay, now I'm gonna attack the passing lane a little bit. Now I'm going to, now I'm going to. It's hard. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Like I thought Clara Strack was already elite defensively, and she was, but it just feels like she's taken that even next step. And obviously, we're mainly talking about her blocks right now, but I feel like just kind of all around defensively, she has played tremendously. And then you have Kaylin Carroll, who, I guess when you look at her stats, didn't have like her greatest game ever. And I'm not saying she played bad, but she didn't, like Wright State. I think she had 18 points on like, I don't know, what was it, like 6 3-pointers. She didn't have that against Hofstra, but I thought she played really well still. 9 points, 2 of 5 shooting from deep, 5 rebounds. I was really impressed with her because we talk about Teonni Key being out. I was really impressed with the fact that she came in and then, just contributed immediately. Was, I think she was the sixth man. Like, I think she was the first person off the bench, and she did her job really well. I want to go over to this fan who says Clara Strack is etching her name in Kentucky women's basketball history just like Georgia did. She's up there with Ron Howard, Adia Matthews, Michaela Epps, etc. I think she can definitely get there. I'm she may be close to there right now. I don't know, but I'm hesitant to say right now that she's there. But like you're not wrong about her etching her name in Kentucky women's basketball history because last season, excuse me, she had the blocks record. She may beat that again this year. Like she's gonna retire. I say retire when Clara Strack moves on to the WNBA after next season. She's going to be one of the best to ever play here, right? It's just an objective fact. Like, I'm not. I don't. I don't know if she'll be the best. I don't know if she'll be Valerie Still or anything like that. But she is certainly, I think, like you said, getting to that point to where, okay, where do we consider Clara Strack among the best players in program history? Because, I sit there and I think about Ron, Valerie, Adia, Michaela, like you said. There's tons more that are slipping my mind right now. But Georgia Amore for her 1 year, right? But Clara Strack she's getting there. Like she's going to be one of the better players, I think, in program history. And then by the way, Kentucky shoots 11 of 27 from three, right? So how about Kentucky? Real quick, want to give a quick shout to our friends over at rollback.com. Rollback, change the game, guys, with Rollback, right? Rollback, I'm trying to find, there it is, there we go, I misplaced it. Rollback, change the game with rollback.com, a proud partner of KSR. Get the best fit and the best feel with their incredibly comfortable activewear. From polos and quarter zips to shorts and Delta performance pants, you will look good and feel good with Rollback. Use promo code KSR for 20% off your first purchase at rollback.com. But yeah, I feel like with Clara Strack, like she's just going to end up being one of the best to ever play here. And now I want to transition to LSU. Now, Stephen, if you're still here, you have to work around the cameras because I'm going to try to do this. Let's see if that works. There we go. We got Matt on.
Looks
guys,
great.
If you don't know Matt, there we go. We got Matt on. Guys, if you don't know Matt, real quick, I'm just going to intro him. Writes for the Bengal Tiger on 3's LSU fan site. He's been covering LSU, I believe, since 2021. Is that right?
Yep.
Since 2021. And I'm going to say this about him because, when I got into women's basketball and I get into this, I think, like, Matt is just a rising star. Like, does great stuff for the Bengal Tiger, does great stuff all around. Today, making the Memorial Memo debut to talk about Kentucky LSU coming up on Thursday. Matt, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Like you said, you reached out, and I'm excited to talk about this big game, this top 10, top 15 game.
Yeah. Okay. So I got to ask you first before we even get into like the actual game. I tweeted this last night, and I was just looking. Is it crazy to you too that this is on SEC Plus? Like I
Yeah.
know the Sugar Bowl's on, I know all the playoff games are on, but someone tweeted this to me, and I think they're absolutely right. Why do we need two Skycast views? Why can Kentucky LSU not be on SEC Network? Like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah, they have all the sky views, the different broadcasts. I'm sure they have the Pat McAfee broadcast, the
Yeah.
coaches show, whatever they do for all those games. It is crazy. Like you said, just throw it on SEC Network. It doesn't have to be on an SEC ESPN2 or anything like that. But yeah, it's crazy.
So we got Kentucky LSU coming up, and for our listeners, okay, LSU 14-0 on the season, averaging 108 points per game. That is an unreal number, by far first in the country. And last season, Kentucky lost to LSU 65-58. Matt, if you remember last year's game, like I think Kentucky was up, I think it was 36-20.
Yeah.
Georgia Amore makes that tip play, hits the layup, Memorial explodes. I want to ask, at that point, did you think LSU was going to lose? Because I
For
thought Kentucky had the win.
Yeah, I thought LSU was going to lose because LSU had moments last year where they couldn't out talent people at times, and when Flage and Michaela weren't hitting last year, it was really they didn't have the depth that to come back. But they ended up coming back and winning. Really good team, Elite Eight team last year for LSU. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely one I did not think they were going to win.
I mean, I actually like, had the hope, and I was like, Kenny's gonna get over this hurdle. We're gonna beat LSU, and then it all falls apart. Like I think, like, and that's a
Well,
credit to Kim. And
it's
there was that viral clip where I think Clara Silva hits the jumper, and her face is just like,
yeah. I mean, that was yeah. I mean, from Kenny's perspective, man, in 2023, his Virginia Tech team was up going to the fourth quarter in the Final Four on that LSU team. That ended up winning the national championship. And I remember people going to that fourth quarter. I think Virginia Tech was up 9, maybe it was, and just people being like, "Yep, well, it's over, season's over," and then LSU comes storming back. So yeah, it's been. We'll see if Kenny can get over the hump here. This time, he got to do it in Baton Rouge.
and then I look at LSU this year, and like even nationally, people are saying this where, and I'm not gonna pretend I haven't done it because I totally have. Where you look at LSU's schedule thus far, and the best team LSU has played so far is Duke, who in the preseason you say, okay, that's a top 10 team.
Yeah.
That's a great Duke team. But since then, they've been probably the most disappointing team in the country, right?
Yep.
I think last time I looked, they were 6-6. I'm not sure what the record is right now. But, you know, when you look at LSU, how good do you really think LSU is? Because I still think LSU is a great team. And what scares me is, okay, I think besides maybe UConn, LSU's the scariest team in the country. And what I mean by that is you see the way they're scoring 108 points per game. They're beating the living crap out of opponents. For all we know, LSU could be the best team. Like I
It,
said, they beat a disappointing Duke team. You know, that was still what a 20-point win on the road,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So like,
and
how good is LSU?
the schedule questions and the schedule criticisms I think are all valid at this point. I mean, we've done it for multiple years. This is by far the weakest Kim Mulkey has scheduled at LSU, and they've had some weak schedules, but this one where Duke is your only game, and that was not even a game that they obviously chose to play. That was the SEC ACC challenge. So you get at Duke. Duke was what were they at that time? Maybe 2-5, somewhere like that, or maybe 2-4. Now then they dropped to 3-6. Now, like you said, I think they're 6-6, or maybe a game up on that. But that win was fine. Duke still is going to be a tournament team and everything like that. Maybe they, I don't know the ACC well enough at this point in the women's side, but maybe they push to win it. I don't know, but there's no other game against a top 100 team. If you go to Bart Torvik's ratings, there's no other team in the top 100. I think like Charlotte, and Tulane, and Louisiana Tech. Those AAC schools are kind of in that range, but yeah, no other top 100 team. Definitely no other high major team. And so, like you said, it's how good is this team really? And I think from Kentucky's perspective, it works both ways because LSU is going to be facing the best team that they've played so far this year, the athletes, the size that they have not seen this year. And so, from that perspective, you are like, okay, it's going to take LSU some time to figure things out and to figure out what works in the half court and defensively against this team. On the other side, if you're Kentucky, you're like, all we have is tape against them against Alabama State and Louisiana
Yeah.
Tech. It's like, what do they do when times get tough? What do they do when it's a close game? I don't know. Nobody knows. I don't even know if Kim Mulkey knows at this point. So there's a lot of unknowns going to this conference season. Definitely a week schedule that could come back to hurt them. I mean, it has come back to hurt them in years past where every year Kim Mulkey's been at LSU, they've been a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. And that's because they don't have enough like high quality wins because it's only SEC play every year. It's like, all right, either you go 15-1 in conference play or you're going to be a 2 or 3 seed. So works both ways, but I do think, to answer your initial question, I do think this LSU team is really good, and I do think they are a top 5 team in the country. And I agree in terms of how dangerous and explosive. I think explosive is probably the word, just because they're so fast, so athletic, and they can get up and down the court.
I mean, I'm sitting here looking just down the depth chart of LSU, and sixth, seven, eighth person would be a starter on literally any other team in the country, basically. And I look at someone, Zakiya Johnson, who from Kentucky,
Yeah.
I think it was LSU, Kentucky, Louisville.
Yeah.
Those last 3 schools in her recruitment, she's averaging 12 points a game. Got a key player slide coming up in a second. She's not on it because LSU's that deep. What have you all made so far of Zakiya and how she's doing down there?
Yeah, Zakiya has been interesting because out of high school, I think, and I know everybody kind of evaluated her as a wing, an off guard. At 6 feet tall, she can shoot it, she can put it on the ground, she can do all these things. She gets to LSU, and I think it's two-part where I think the guard depth would have pushed her kind of lower on the rotation as a freshman, because you already have Flau'jae, you already have Michaela. They brought in Malaysia Fulwiley. They had Jada Richard come back. They have Kaylin Gilbert come back. So it was kind of like, all right, where do you find minutes for her at the guard spots? So what they did is they put her at the 4, and going into the season, they kind of had a need for finding a 4 or kind of making it work at the 4 spot. And so they put her there, and she was really good for the first month and a half. I think the last few weeks she's kind of been up and down a little bit as they continue to get ready for conference play. But I do she's, like you said, averaging 12 points, 6 boards, shooting 64% from the field. The competition hasn't been great, but no matter who you're playing, she just looks the part in terms of a talented player. So this year she's playing the 4. Next year she could be playing the 3. Maybe playing the 2, maybe playing the 4 again. But she's definitely skilled enough to do whatever Mulkey needs her to do.
And we'll go one by one with these key players right here. So we'll start first with Malaysia Fulwiley. Like you said, transferred from South Carolina, poster from the conference rival. 15.1 points per game, 3.8 assists per game, 4 steals per game. Now, Kenny talked about this after the Hofstra game. It was very clear he had already started on the LSU film. And he was like, they've run, I think he said it was 7 different starting lineups. And you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but you'll have to correct me. Malaysia normally comes off the bench, right? Or is it always off the bench?
She hasn't started a game this year.
Yeah.
So that's where, like you said, they've started a lot of different lineups. A lot of those have been tinkering with the front court, specifically, trying to, like I said, trying to figure out the mix and matching of the 4 and 5 spots, because Michaela and Flau'jae will usually start. And then they've gone to Jada Richard at point guard every game as well. So those 3, the 1 through 3, have been locked in every game so far. But in terms of Fulwiley, she leads the team in scoring. She's only playing 20 minutes a game. And I say only, everybody 1 through, like you said, like 1 through 9 is basically playing between 18 and 22 minutes per game. So that's kind of just, with all these blowouts, you're able to really stagger players and everything like that. But Fulwiley, she's been the difference this year. I think she's the reason why this team has the potential to be the best team that Kim Mulkey has had. Because they just haven't. I mean, nobody has a player like Malaysia Fulwiley. If y'all haven't seen her, go look up her highlights. It's uncanny, really. Her athleticism, her speed, her finishing ability, her playmaking, her handle. At South Carolina the last 2 years, she flashed all of that. She averaged 12 points both of those seasons. under Don Staley, and now she comes over here and she's flourishing. Kim Mulkey lets her play through mistakes. She lets her go up and down. She's a great defender. So you pair her with the other top players on this team, and it's kind of a perfect fit here. They haven't been forced to start her yet. I don't think they will start her at any point, but I do think her minutes will go up from 20 to the 25 to 26, 27 range.
Now you talked about how now we have talked about how deep LSU is. You talk about that 8 to 9 player lineup they can run. Do you think that'll condense down a little bit now that they're in conference play?
I think they'll be happy with 8. So to kind of shorten it, Flage and Michaela will be on the court a ton. Full Wiley and Jada Richard will rotate the one, and sometimes they'll play together. So you have those 4 in your backcourt. And then the front court, I do think you have like it says, Zakiya Johnson, Amaya Joyner, Grace Knox, and Kate Cobalt. So that's 8 right there. One returner, Kaylin Gilbert, has been away from the team the last 9 games for personal reasons. So we'll see if she comes back. That maybe could be a 9th. But I think they're happy with those 8 and being able to kind of rotate those lineups in and out. And they're kind of flexible as well. They can even move Michaela down to the 4 at times if they want to and figure things out. But yeah, I do think they'll play those 8 for the most part. You won't see as many of those freshmen. They had a great freshman class, but some of the players on the end of the bench are a little bit like the 9, 10, and 11 players. You won't see them as much.
Want to go to our guy Kenneth Burnett here. He says if we can beat LSU, it would be huge for our confidence, especially on the road, because LSU plays good at home, especially in the second half. I remember last year we controlled the first half but lost the second,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Like Kentucky really had that game in its hands, but whatever you want to credit to, Kentucky playing bad, LSU playing good, we really did see that game kind of just flip on its head.
Yeah, that was something that I have to go back and look at the box score. I know LSU's defense started playing better. I know Amore didn't have a great game in terms of shooting the ball. I'd have to think about. I'd have to see the rest. But yeah,
I want to say Michaela Williams really balled out for
I
some reason,
think
but I could be
Michaela.
wrong about that.
I think Michaela was great last year, and so I know you had that graphic of the key players.
Yeah,
I'll talk about Michaela real quick. Because if you look at the numbers, she's only averaging 12.6 per game this year, and nothing really jumps out to you. She's averaging 24 and a half minutes. I think you look at her last year, I was saying she was one of the top 3 or 4 players in the conference. And in terms of skill, she still is that. And now it's for her as a junior taking that next step, because you had the games, like you said, Kentucky against Oklahoma last year. I think it was, she had 37 or something like that. Like, she has flashes. And now this year it's about putting it together for an entire season and an entire conference season, really. So she'll be rested. She'll be ready to go. If you're Kentucky, you really want her. If you're the opposition in any game, you want her to be passive. You want her to, play off the ball and not go for it as much. But if you're LSU, you need Michaela to be aggressive, especially in a game like this where both teams are just loaded with talent.
and then you got Flau'jae Johnson, who kind of I don't know, I guess the biggest name everyone would know on this LSU roster,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Malaysia. I don't know, but I know Flau'jae, well, hell, she's big outside of basketball with the whole
Yeah.
music thing. Also averaging 15.1 points, 4.3 rebounds per game, and shooting 51.1% from deep. Now, as a team, LSU is shooting 38% from deep, 39% if you round up. That I know it's top. I think top 5 in the country. Like, is that a product of playing the Alabama States of the world, or is LSU, you think, in general, just this great shooting team?
Yeah, it's to a degree, but I do think Flau'jae, shooting 51% on 47 attempts, this is the best she's shot the ball in her career at any point. Really comfortable and getting good looks. Her and Michaela's shooting 42.5% herself. So between those two, that makes up about a third of the team's 3-point attempts, and they are going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Wiley's still not a great shooter at this point, 30%, but she can, get hot sometimes. But in terms of Flau'jae, as a senior, she was a starter on that championship team back in 2023, and now I think she's able to put it together. But it is kind of like Michaela. It's going to be interesting to see them all kind of turn it up now that conference play is here. You're not playing the lower tier teams anymore. You're playing Kentucky immediately, and so it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of jumps together.
I think we kind of lost us there. If you want to
You're
quickly
good.
I think we lost each other real quick. Quickly recap what you just said.
You're good.
My
Yeah, no,
bad.
you're good. Let me know if it goes out again. But yeah, Flage as a senior, kind of putting it all together, but she has to kind of like Michaela take it up another level now going into SEC play, and that's where I mean, even last year when they lost to UCLA in the Elite Eight, you were kind of waiting on. You always get one of the two last year. It was like you get Flage or you get Michaela. Very rarely you get both. I think in this year you're going to need to get both, especially against a team like Kentucky.
And then I want to talk about Kate Koval, transfer from Notre Dame. This one I'm really interested about because I think it's an interesting matchup down low between her and Clara Streck. 12.1 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, 1.4 steals, and I think like 1.1 blocks, if I remember right. But Matt, I think there's a lot of people going into this season who, when they were questioning LSU, and especially me, but I think I saw this nationally some too, people were like, is LSU going to get a lot of good play from their bigs? Like, is Kate Koval really going to be able to do it down there? Because I think she had a limited role a little bit at Notre Dame,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, especially with just how they play in general.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you make of Kate Koval so far? How do you view that matchup against Claire Strack and Kentucky's bigs going?
Yeah, so Kate, former 5-star, for those who don't know, committed to Notre Dame. LSU was second in that recruitment. They ended up getting her on after 1 year at Notre Dame. She's been, I think, as good as I expected, if not a little bit better. Defensively, she's really, really agile. She sees the game well. Like you said, 1.4 steals, 1.1 blocks. I think the overall activity level and the size, right? I mean, 6'5", speaks for itself. And so she's really active. I've been impressed with her defensively. Offensively, she's, I mean, very talented as well. I mean, 60% from the field, 76% from the line. So I think at the 5, they have that spot really nailed down. In terms of overall front court, I mean, Grace Knox was the number 7 player in the country, I think, on Rivals. So she's a 5-star. She's very capable, good athlete. And Amaya Joyner, who was an all AAC first team player at ECU, has been really good for them as well as a senior. So front court, and then you throw in Zakiya Johnson as well, like we talked about. So front court, I wouldn't say it's been a concern. I actually think at the 5 position, it's an upgrade over what they had last year with Samaya Smith. So I am curious to see how this matchup goes with Koval and Strack, and then Joyner will get on her as well.
I think people knew just heading into the season how good the backcourt was for LSU. And I think people just wondered, and again,
Yeah.
including myself, just wondered if the front court would be there. If you asked me about the Kentucky side, I would say the two X factors, if you will. How's Clara Strack going to play against Kate Cobo, right? How's that matchup going to go? And then I would say if Teonni Key is out for a third game in a row, you throw Asia Boone there at the starting lineup, slide everybody else down. How does she do against a more athletic team? Matt, what would you say are the X factors for LSU heading into this game?
Yeah, I think honestly, containing Morgan at that point guard spot, I think is really important. Just because of how key she is to their offense. It's gonna be really interesting to see. I assume it'll be Jada Richard to start, and then it'll be Mylasia Fulwiley on her. Fulwiley's been able to disrupt every team that they've played so far. So, can she do that against Morgan, a very, very talented player? So, that's one key for me. And then I think for LSU, again, a product of not playing anybody through the non-conference, is I think this is a good rebounding team, but there's no Angel Reese here. There's no Anissa Morrow here. There's no surefire doubles right now. I think Koval's improved as a rebounder, and that front court is good, but I need to see it against the size of Kentucky here. I need to see it against the Stracks and this just the size of this Kentucky team. So that is something that I'm looking forward to seeing is first, how do they stop Morgan? And then secondly, can they rebound? Because I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. Nobody knows the answer to it. I don't even know if Mulkey knows the answer of how good this rebounding is. This a great rebounding team, or is this just a good rebounding team? Under Mulkey, they're always going to be good. But, the past few years, it's been like you have some of the best rebounders in college basketball history on your team.
Yeah. So when you get Angel Reese and Anissa Morrow, it's like, well, you're going to get.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a confirmed like 25 rebounds a game between
yeah,
those two alone.
exactly.
So to put you on the spot and to put myself on the spot a little bit, now we're going to predict this game,
Okay.
right? I have said since before the season, I looked at LSU's schedule, I looked at Kentucky's schedule, and I have to stick with it now. I can't be a coward and
Don't go back.
back up now. Can't hold back now. I said Kentucky's going to win this game. I don't know if Kentucky's the better team necessarily, but I think Kentucky's going to win this game. I've got UK winning 87-83. I'm going to have Clara Strack as my MVP. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I think Strack will have to have a huge game with her versatility, maybe get them in foul trouble a little bit. It'll be interesting in that respect. And then I do think Kentucky. I haven't. I've seen some Kentucky. I haven't seen enough of them. I haven't watched every game in terms of that, but I remember seeing the Louisville game and some other games. The 3-point shooting for Kentucky will have to be huge in terms of like the volume. Usually when LSU loses, like the Elite Eight game last year, UCLA was able to outduel them from three because Mulkey's teams just don't shoot a ton of them. So that'll be one thing to watch as well. I do think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I mean, LSU's not really capable of not playing fast. Like they just will play fast no matter what, even if it's not the greatest shot selection at time. I think they're going to go fast. I think they'll be hyped up. If this game was at Kentucky, I'd have more concerns. I do think that being at home, I'm not sure nationally if people understand like Kim Mulkey, the draw Kim Mulkey has at LSU is absurd. Though that place gets packed and it gets loud, it is very impressive. So I do think at home they get it done. If I had to put a score on it, I'll say LSU. I'll be similar to yours in some respect. I'll say like 89-80. Yeah, 89-80. There we go.
And if you were to put an MVP on the game, obviously probably from the LSU side, who would you say? Like who's going to have a big game? You think?
Going back to my point on Morgan, I think Fulwiley. If Fulwiley has a real game, let's say, I mean, I don't know how many people have looked at her steal numbers. She has 56 steals in 14 games. Yeah, she's been absurd on the defense side of the ball with her athleticism. If Fulwiley's able to defend at this level and she just continues to attack like she can, I think I could see a game where she ends with 16 points, 4 steals, a block, and a couple of rebounds and assists, where she fills up the stat sheet. And I don't know if she leads the team in scoring, but her impact would be the biggest.
And just to troll you right before we leave, we got our guy John in here saying Lane be taking $9 from Kim. Hashtag BBN for life. And he also has cats by 4 like
Love
me.
it.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really enjoyed you having on. I'm going to have to do this again. Whenever Kentucky LSU meet annually,
Yeah.
we're going to have to keep doing this. I really enjoyed having you on. Your insight meant a lot to us here. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Anytime, man.
All right, there we go. So we've got Matt on. He thinks LSU wins this one. I think we both realize this is going to be a close game. It's just a matter of who pulls it out, right? I said I'm sticking with my guns. I think Kentucky wins. He says LSU wins 89-80. So I think that will certainly be interesting to keep an eye on. Now, we're not wrapping up the episode. Why? Because Kentucky plays again on Sunday before I'll have a chance to record again, right? We're going to have to do this, I guess, throughout SEC play. So we're going to do a very briefish kind of Missouri preview, and then I'm going to preview Kentucky and the SEC in general. I'm looking at the time for the episode. We're at 44 minutes. We're just going to keep going. It's going to be a little bit of a longer episode than normal, but hey, I'm not complaining. So Kentucky, Missouri. You look at Missouri. First of all, you look the furthest left picture there, that first picture, that is Sanaya Tyler, former Kentucky Wildcat, spent 2 years in Lexington, returns home to play for her home state, Missouri Tigers. Missouri is 12-3 on the season. If you look in the middle picture, that is Kelly Harper, the coach of the Missouri Tigers, was previously at Tennessee. Poor girl had the job of, I don't remember if there was a coach between her and Pat or not. There probably was. I just can't remember. But she had the job of, trying to, Tennessee's the second best program in the history of the sport, and she had the job of, you know, all right, bring us back to national heights. And so, of course, they didn't quite have the run that they hoped, but she's now at Missouri. In their last game against Kansas City, they got by in they scraped by. 71-67 overtime win against Kansas City. Not the Chiefs, right? Not the Royals. It's Kansas City College, Kansas City University, right? So I think that's interesting to kind of get a look at how good is Missouri really. Then last season, Kentucky beat Mizzou 73-65 on the road in what was really kind of like Missouri was really bad last season. They're better, much better this season. But that like game last season was kind of like it was almost a trap game kind of feeling where it's like, okay, we should be better than this team, but it's still like oddly, weirdly close. I think something similar could even happen this year. But look at Missouri's key players. It all starts basically the alpha and omega, right? Grace Slaughter, guard for them, 18.9 points, 7.5 rebounds, shooting 37.8% from the three-point line. You have a guard transfer from Illinois State, Shannon Dowell, 16.4 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. Another forward, Jordana Riesma, 10.8 points, 6.8 rebounds, 1.5 assists per game. And then Jayla Smith there, 9.4 points, 1.6 steals, and 45.7% from deep. We talked about how good of a shooting team LSU was a second ago. Well, I think they're shooting 38.8% from three on the year. Well, Missouri's shooting 38.3% on the year from deep. Like, I think LSU, I was looking at the numbers, I think LSU is the fourth best three-point shooting team in the country. And I want to say Mizzou is like sixth. So back-to-back games, you're playing two of the better three-point shooting teams in the country. I think, of course, like UConn is number one. And then, like Missouri and LSU are right there. This will be an interesting game. This one's at home for Kentucky. It'll be weird to see Kelly Harper not coaching Tennessee. It'll be weird to see her, on the Missouri sideline. It'll be weird for me to see Sanaya Tyler in that yellow and black, right? But I think Kentucky gets it done here. I think Kentucky is the much better team compared to Missouri, but I still think it'll be maybe closer than it even should be. I have Kentucky winning this one 79-67, and my MVP is actually going to be Jordan Obi, who hasn't been the MVP of a game in a minute, but I think she can get it done against a team like Missouri. Now, I want to preview the SEC in general. You've heard me say, I think we start SEC 2-0 by beating LSU and Missouri. You must think we're going to go 16-0. No, but I want to preview SEC play, right? I want to think about, we talked about LSU and Mizzou, but what can Kentucky do the rest of the way? What can Kentucky do, for the rest of the season? So you look at Kentucky's SEC schedule, and of course, I've already kind of spoiled it here. I think Kentucky beats LSU. I think they beat Missouri. Okay, so then you look at the rest of that schedule. And what I think to myself is, Alabama is a much tougher team, right? Much tougher team than we thought. They're undefeated. Oklahoma's still pretty good. Tennessee's there. Play Vandy. That's the home and home for SEC play this year is Vandy. It was Georgia last season. Texas, Ole Miss, South Carolina. It's all still there, right? So you look at that, and you look at who Kentucky plays, and you're sitting there like, all right, we got to look at Kentucky, 13-1 in non-con, only losses to number 7 Maryland. What can Kentucky really be in SEC play? We got Captain Kirk saying, Sanaya Tyler plays for Missouri now. I liked her a lot. She was a solid role player. Yeah, she's in Missouri now. She's from Missouri, I think from I want to say the St. Louis area. I don't know if she's from St. Louis specifically, but I think around that area. And so, she went back home to play for Missouri. And I think I said her first 2 years at Kentucky. Pretty sure she was a junior last year. Yeah, she was. So this is actually her senior season. She's playing for her home state team. But you look at that schedule, right? You see the teams that Kentucky plays, and you think about what they've done to this point. So now I want to transition to the ceiling and floor. What can Kentucky be? What heights can Kentucky reach? Let's say Teonni Key's out for longer than we think, and we fall apart. How bad will Kentucky end up being? Well, here's what I think, right? I think you look at the ceiling. Now, look, you see the ceiling and floor. Neither of these are what I think Kentucky is going to end up doing. But this is me just talking about the tippy top of the mountain, the peak, and like the ninth circle of hell all the way down there, right? So I think Kentucky has the potential. Again, I don't think they will, but I think Kentucky has the potential to go 27-3. And what that means is you lose to Texas and you lose to South Carolina. And what that means for the season is that Kentucky's a top 5 team. Kentucky is one of the best teams in the country. And, that loss to Maryland on neutral court, well, they just weren't quite there. And even if Maryland is that good, okay, your only losses are to other top 5 teams, right? So, again, I look at that. The ceiling, I think Kentucky 27-3, like I said, 14-2 in the SEC with losses to Texas and South Carolina. That would make you, I think a 3 seed in the SEC tournament is unfortunately the tippy top of the mountain for Kentucky, which sucks because you go 14-2 in any other conference, and I mean that could even be true for the SEC, but I just don't see a world where Kentucky, places better in the conference than it's South Carolina or Texas this year. I just don't. So that's why I have that 3 seed there in the SEC tournament as the kind of ceiling there. And I think a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament because you got those 2 teams, UConn, UCLA. I just don't see a world where Kentucky, I think they could be the highest 2 seed. I just don't know if they can quite punch up to that 1 seed line. And then the floor, I think Kentucky's floor is going 500 in conference play, finishing 21-9 on the year. That would make you, I think, roughly a 9 seed in the SEC tournament and then an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament, something like that. Again, that's the floor. That's not necessarily what I expect. Neither is the ceiling. Again, I want to emphasize that because I don't want someone to take my comments out of context and use them in the wrong light. So these were my preseason predictions for SEC play. You go back to, I think it was October, early November, when I said this is what Kentucky will do in SEC play. Like I said, since back then, I've said they'll beat LSU, so I'm sticking with it. Right? And you'll see that in a second. And these are my preseason predictions again. Had losses to Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is not as good as I thought they'd be. And Vanderbilt, I do think Kentucky, or at least I did at the time, thinks Kentucky drops one of those 2 games, and then you have South Carolina their last game. Now, if you're just listening on podcasts, I'll explain this in a second. But if you're watching on YouTube right now, I want you to look at the screen. And when I click on this next graphic, you're just going to see the difference between, what I thought Kentucky would do in the SEC in the preseason and what I think they'll do now. It's a very slight, subtle change. All right. So now you see from the preseason to now, I think Kentucky beats Tennessee on the road. It's the only difference. And that's not even as much to say about Kentucky as it is about Tennessee. I think Tennessee's been pretty underwhelming so far. And Kentucky matched up to Tennessee's style really well last year. And I kind of think they'll do it again. Now, it's interesting. If Teonni Key, for some unearthly reason, is out for that game at that point, then I do have some concern. But I think at this point, this is, again, my preseason SEC losses were Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, at Vandy, and South Carolina. And then you go to now, I think Kentucky loses to Oklahoma, to Texas, which is on the road, to Ole Miss at home, Vandy on the road, and then South Carolina. So, again, the only difference from then to now is that Tennessee game. I think Kentucky wins that. So, let's say my predictions are right. Let's say for somehow Phoenix is a genius, right? He got lucky and guessed all the non-conference right. He guessed the only one we'd lose is Maryland. What if he somehow does it again for SEC play, right? That would mean Kentucky finishes the season with a 24-6, 11-5 in the SEC record, and I think that would probably make Kentucky a 4 or 5 in the SEC tournament, and then somewhere between a 2 and a 4 in the NCAA tournament. So my point in all of that is to say Kentucky is in a really good spot, right? Even if you lose on Thursday to LSU, you were in a very, very good spot. You're 13-1, and you look at the SEC schedule again. I think Kentucky is in a position to, especially in that February stretch. It's a really tough stretch. But let's say from February 9th to March 1st, right, the end of the season, if you can somehow win, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. If you can go 4-2 somehow in that stretch, I think you're pretty much golden, right? Because I think the first half of SEC play, like when Kentucky gets to that Vanderbilt game on February 5th, that right side of the graphic, I think there's a very real chance Kentucky is sitting there, with only 2 or 3 losses. Okay? So now, and like I said, I think there's to beat LSU, I think there's a real shot you still only have like 1 loss. But let's just go ahead and say when you get to that right side of the graphic, to February 9th against Vandy, you've got, like I said, 2 or 3 losses to this point, right? You're still in a great position to finish the season with a really nice record. So again, I like where Kentucky's at. I talk about the ceiling and the floor. I think it'll be somewhere in between that 27-3 and 21-9. Like I said, I think Kentucky finishes 24-6, 11-5 in the SEC. But guys, the fun part is that on Thursday this all starts. But like I've said, and like I've talked about, since the preseason, Kentucky has a chance to prove that it belongs in that discussion with LSU and Texas and South Carolina, right? And Oklahoma, who's kind of in that same bubble as Kentucky right now. Like, conference play can be really fun. And like I said, I think Kentucky gets it started with an upset win on Thursday. So that's how we're going to conclude this episode of the podcast. Again, I want to thank Matt for coming on. Like I said, it's like I told him, just great insight on LSU. I want to try to do that a little bit more often for teams. I know Missouri doesn't really have, or at least that I know of, like the super dedicated women's basketball person, right? Matt does that a little bit for LSU. He covers football and men's basketball as well for LSU. But I'm going to try to do that as much as I can throughout the season. Like I know On3 South Carolina guy, I'm going to try to get him on. I know Vandy has a person, not On3 or Rivals, but I know the Vandy beat writer, might try to get them on. I think it's good to have that. And again, got an hour-long podcast out of it. So follow Matt on social media. Follow me too, right? But follow Matt on social media at Matthew Brune _. That's Matthew BRUNE _ on social media. I know he has Twitter. I don't know about Instagram or TikTok or none of that, but I know I do. So P Stevens KSR, go follow me over there. But regardless, thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of the Memorial Memo, right? Episode 51. Looking forward to episode 52. Hopefully, Kentucky has at least 1, but 2. I'm going to hope for 2 SEC wins by the time we record next time. Again, thank you all so much. Go Cats. We'll see you all next time. Peace out.